The Chicago Bears have a secret superstar, I would say, and he's really turning heads. Hey, I love the undrafted free agents that the Bears have brought in this offseason. We might see at least, I'd say, three of them make this team. But part of that excitement, it's that it's showing us not only what a great evaluator of talent this front office is, that's very true, but also the fact that we have a perfect example of how an undrafted free agent, how an undrafted player can absolutely flourish if he's given the right coaching and a chance to succeed. The guy I want to talk about is linebacker TJ Edwards. He's a fifth-year pro, but he still uses the fact that he went undrafted as motivation. Let's hear it from him. Coming out and going undrafted, it put a huge chip on my shoulder. It was 5 years ago now, but it still sits with me. And honestly, I've just never been complacent with where I'm at. That's allowed me to just have that drive and motivation to keep going. I always want to do more for my teammates. I always want to make more plays. I still don't think I'm the best player I can be yet. And that's TJ Edwards on what motivates him. That's via the Chicago Tribune. And this undrafted free agent that we have in TJ Edwards, he might be the backbone of this defense, and I don't think he gets enough love. He might be the most underrated great player on this defense. Once again, I just want to give him some love here. I want to bring it out into the open how good he's been for us so far. And I want to go into this PFF article about each team's secret superstar, and that term is not my invention. And let's go down here. You guys can follow along if you want, but I always want to give credit. This is just, it's a fun article, and we're in the off season. Why not go through it? So I want to go into this PFF article, and we went on a bit of a spending spree last offseason, right? We signed TJ Edwards to a 3-year contract after an impressive stint with the Eagles. We hope that he could fill the void left by Roquan Smith. And if you remember, we ended up trading him. He was doing a bunch of nonsense with the contract negotiations, doing it in public, not having an agent, stuff that our GM Ryan Poles, he just has no patience with. So we ended up trading him, and we used the acquired pick to select Gervon Dexter. I believe Gervon Dexter is going to develop into our 3-tech. And man, did TJ Edwards respond when he came to Hallis Hall. He racked up 155 total tackles, totaling 8 games with double-digit tackles. And he's a complete player. He was excellent across the board. He finished with an 80.2 overall PFF grade. That's fantastic. And that's good for the 10th highest among all NFL linebackers. And he also has top 20 PFF grades in run defense and in coverage. I mean, another reason why he's underrated. We have one of the best linebackers, for sure the best tackler, for a cap hit of only $5 million this year. That's right, $5 million. That's an absolute steal, and he's under team control for 2 more years, you guys. That's an interesting read just across all the teams, so give it your time. All the smoke, right, if you remember. Excuse me. All the smoke and the huge contract that we gave out at linebacker, that was for Tremaine Edwards when we grabbed Tremaine Edmonds, when we grabbed him from Buffalo last offseason. The contract, it was also market setting at the time. But here's the big thing. Edwards, low key, I think he's been the better signing. Edmonds started out slow. He turned it around in the second half. He was great. But Edwards, he's just been the consistent anchor. He's been carrying the lunch pail, if you will, in the middle of this defense. And the Bears defense kicked in on the Montez Sweat deal when he came into town. I mean, he gets most of the credit in the media, but I think it's Edwards that's had a quiet hand in this success. He was a huge part of this defensive resurgence. And really, if you think about it, the strength of this unit is actually in the linebacker core. So let's kind of recap here. TJ Edwards, he's entering his 6th season in the NFL, 2nd in Chicago. He spent his first 4 NFL seasons with the Philadelphia Eagles after signing on as an undrafted free agent. And this was out of the University of Wisconsin in 2019. So he's appeared in 78 games total. He's made 64 starts, 523 total tackles. That's 296 solo, 28 tackles for a loss, 17 QB hits, 20 passes defended, yada, 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 7.5 sacks. I mean, he was fantastic for Philly. And then this last year, his first in Chicago, he led the team with the aforementioned 155 tackles, and that's good for seventh most in the NFL, by the way. 8 tackles for a loss, 2.5 sacks, 8 QB hits. He defended 7 passes, 3 picks, 2 recovered fumbles. I mean, come on. And then if you look at specific games, let's go through a couple highlights. He was the Bears' top graded player in week 6 per PFF. He graded as a 91 PFF rating in week 6. That's outrageous. He reached 250 career solo tackles and 450 total tackles in week 8. Those are big milestones. He finished the game with 13 tackles in week 8 and 9 solo. 2 tackles for a loss, 1 fumble recovery. I mean, if you remember that game, he looked absolutely like the best defensive player on the field all day. Week 14, that's one of my favorite games. He recovered a Lions fumble late in the third quarter. That set us up for a touchdown. And he also, in a losing effort, he led the team with 10 tackles. That's 7 solo once again in week 18 at Green Bay. So PFF goes a step further. They had him as their number 9 linebacker in the game. And I want to quote directly from PFF. Edwards' first season in Chicago was as good as his final one in Philly in 2022, with a 2019 undrafted free agent earning a PFF grade above 75, both in run defense and in coverage for the second straight year. He was targeted 91 times in coverage. Wow, that's a lot. But he only gave up 2 touchdowns and recorded a combined 7 pass breakups and interceptions. His backfield mate, Tremaine Edwards, he graded just behind him, even though he's making way more money. Let's look at this. And this is a quote from PFF as well. Edmonds just missed the top 10 and he was 11th overall. His 2023 season, it was a disappointment compared to his 2022 campaign with Buffalo, with a 2018 first round draft pick earning a 56.6 PFF grade. That's not amazing. His 90.0 PFF coverage grade in 2022. That was the best at the position, though. So the Bears were going to expect him to bounce back in 2024. And a lot of that had to do with his slow start. To be honest, though, this whole defense had a slow start last year. So let's kind of take that with a grain of salt. But now we've got these 2 linebackers who are studs. And then we add yet another undrafted free agent, Jack Sanborn. I mean, which is ridiculous. That's why we got to keep these undrafted free agents that are in town. We got to pay attention to them. It's going to be a lot of fun. PFF continues. PFF actually graded Sanborn higher than they did Edmonds, 67.3 to 56.6, and that's the 5th highest defensive grade on the Bears. He played all 17 games, starting 10. He played 412 snaps on defense. That's about 38%, and another 294 on special teams. That's 66%, racking up 65 tackles, 7 tackles for a loss, a sack, and an interception. I mean, I can go through more stats. It gets a little boring, but what a linebacker trio that we have. So let's get back to TJ. So like I was talking about, this guy can not only cover, but he's just a great open field tackler. And it's guys like this, the glue guys. Those are the guys that get overlooked. You could argue that one of the reasons Philly had a defensive slide is that we grabbed Edwards from him. I don't think they valued him enough, but I want to get this out so we value him enough. And we also have SI's Gilberto Manzano. He was also impressed. He recently named Sweat, TJ Edwards, and Jalen Johnson as the 7th best defensive triplet across the entire NFL. Personally, I think they're off. I think they should be in the top 3. I mean, you've got the best cover corner in the game. You've got Montez Sweat, who arguably is a top 3 defensive end. I mean, that's hard to argue with. And now you got underrated TJ Edwards. But let's hear what Manzano had to say. The Bears took a risk by signing linebackers Edwards and Tremaine Edwards to lucrative contracts during last year's free agency. Many teams stopped splurging on inside linebackers, but between us, this is really telling. Coach Matt Eberflus's scheme, it just runs better with talented off-ball linebackers, and that was evident last year in 2023. Edwards had the better season over Edmonds, earning the nod to form this impressive trio with Sweat and Johnson, and that's from SI. I mean, if you look back, General manager Ryan Poles, he knew that this was the player he wanted. He wasted zero time in finding Edwards. He signed a 3-year deal worth $19.5 million just minutes after free agency opened, and now that's looking like a bargain. He was the first addition to this revamped linebacking core, and there was a worry. I remember back then. You take a guy like TJ Edwards, an undrafted free agent who had flashed a lot in Philly. Would he have the same impact here in Chicago? The same impact that he did in Philly for a Chicago team that kind of at the time they didn't seem to have the talent around him to be comparable to Philly, right? But I'd say now, looking back, he's the reason now that a lot of the talent around him is better. He's the glue guy, I'm telling you. And to watch him play, he kind of gives off Lance Briggs vibes. I mean, bear with me here. Another underrated talent during his time here. Briggs, he played under the shadow of Urlacher. He didn't get a lot of pub. He didn't get a lot of credit. Hey, what's up, Banks? But without Urlacher, I think he would have been a first ballot Hall of Famer on his own if he was on a different team. If you just look at his stat sheet the year Urlacher was hurt, I mean, do yourself a favor. That stat line is just sick. But I love Lance Briggs, but if you watch him play, I'm talking about TJ, he just flies sideline to sideline. He tackles so well. There's rarely any yards gained after the wrap up. And he also got stronger and better as the year went on. 6 of his 8 tackles for a loss and all 3 of his interceptions that came after week 8. He also finished 8th in the league in solo tackles. And the chemistry that he developed with Edmonds and Jack Sanborn, they have formed such a formidable unit. And Jack Sanborn, yet another undrafted free agent, he's just been a stud for the Bears. And I'm telling you, keep watch of this new undrafted crop as mandatory camp starts today. We've got like, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if we have 4 players that make this team. I think it's going to be at least 3. And now we just have this linebacking crew set for quite some time. Edwards is fully affordable for 2 more years. Edmonds and Sanborn, they're under contract for the same time frame as well. So, man, the security that brings. We want to continue filling out this defensive line, right? Dexter, he's shaping into the 3 tech. That'll go a long way. Plus the development of Booker opposite Sweat. I mean, the development of this line, it's only going to free up this linebacking crew even more to patrol the field and cause turnovers. But right now, I think this linebacking crew is the heart of this defense. I think TJ Edwards is the backbone of this defense. And so that being said, you guys check him out, give him lots of love, but let's move forward here. Let's look at some dates to keep in mind. So we've got mandatory minicamp that's starting today until the 6th. This is the first time all the players, they're required to be at Hallis Hall for summer work. The coaches are going to continue installing schemes in the classroom. The players will take the field for walkthroughs, competitive periods like 7-on-7s, 11-on-11 drills. If the players don't show up now, though, they're going to be subject to a fine from the team unless it's an excused absence. And then after that's over, we're looking at training camp. I don't have a definite date, but it's going to be from mid-July to August. And you guys know this is when the bulk of the work is done to get the team in shape for week 1. And that work is both mental and physical. They'll ramp up from practicing in shorts and t-shirts to shells, finally full pads. This is also the first time that the team will be allowed to practice with live tackling. And I think Coach Flus will choose that. It's kind of odd, though, because the official report dates for training camp, they haven't been announced yet. And also, we know the Bears will be able to start camp early because of the next item on the list, and that's the Hall of Fame game starting in August, and that's on August 1st. But that's going to enable us as a team to start training camp a little earlier. And what's not to like about that? We've got rookies at wide receiver, at quarterback, at defensive end. I absolutely love that. Let's give them as much time together as a team as possible. And we get a head start in the preseason with the Hall of Fame game on August 1st. Over the course of the weekend, the league, They're going to honor new Bears Hall of Famers Steve McMichael. Love you, Mongo. Devin Hester, and kind of to a degree, Julius Peppers. When I think of Julius Peppers, I kind of think a little more of him as a Carolina Panther, but he put in some really good years here in Chicago. And on Thursday night, they'll also take on the Houston Texans at Tom Benson Hall of Fame Stadium in Canton. So it's worth noting, too, the Hall of Fame game, it doesn't replace a preseason game for the Bears. So they'll actually play 4 warm-ups this year instead of just 3. The extra game, it's going to give the coaches an extra week to both get ready for the regular season and also evaluate these players who are trying to earn a roster spot. And I think that evaluation process, that time, it's super important because we have a fantastic crop of undrafted free agents. And I think the longer that we can take a look at them, the better. And I absolutely love them. So love you guys. Thank you for spending this time with me. Bear down. Enjoy the off season, and I'll see you in the comments. See ya.